So as we talked about before, there's the two-pronged approach to it. So it's got to be by, so that the perpetrator, if I can put it that way, has to be as defined, which is a member of an employee's household, a close relative of an employee, or a current and former intimate partner of an employee. So that's who the perpetrator has to be, and they have to be seeking coerce or control the employee, seeking to coerce or control the employee. Now, that's a bit of an unknown what that looks like, but as we talked about, there are many different strains of what can demonstrate or present as being coercion or control of an employee. So if in doubt, I would always take the conservative approach, which is, okay, it is that, what do we need to do? It is domestic and violence. What do we need to do as an employer? In terms of these amendments, as we talked about, so 1st of Feb, we're in them as if you're a large employer. You're not yet there if you're a small employee, but that's the minimum basis. But what I would be recommending to your members is that they look at these entitlements, and they look at developing a policy around how are we as a business going to handle it. That policy could be a manager's guide that you don't necessarily have front of house for everyone to see, but given that it's a new area, given that there's going to be need for interpretation, it's really good for people to have consistency over that. So I would be developing a manager's guide for dealing with it, and obviously then a policy around what you as a business are doing to combat, issues of family and domestic violence leave. Yeah. So, what would the employee need to take the leave for? And because that's the, I suppose, third aspect is it's got to be not practical for them to do so outside of work. So that means not only is it by the perpetrators we discussed, not only is it coercion and control, which meet the definition of family and domestic violence leave, it has to be an act or a thing they need to do which they can't do outside of work. So some examples would be like making arrangements for their safety. Obviously, if there was an event at home, they've gone to a shelter and then they need to be able to get a place for their family. That's likely to need to happen in work hours. So that would be an example. Attending court is probably the biggest example, or a police station. They're the two where that would likely have to be would be during working hours if they're a full-time worker. Attending counselling, that one's a bit more subjective. Like an employee is possible to get counselling outside of work, but again, you might and you will need to deal with that on a case-by-case basis. Attending medical appointments, again, if it was with a GP, maybe you could do that outside of work. If it was the psychiatrist or psychologist, maybe you can't. So you need to balance all of those things and again, think about, I'm talking about the minimum. You as an employer can go beyond the minimum. You might say, listen, there's no need for you to justify to me that you could do it outside of work. I'm happy to give it to you. You as an employer can go beyond the minimum, which is what we're sort of seeing is the concept. Probably a lot of employers are going to adapt, which is a good thing. It applies to everyone, so your full-time, your part-time and your casual, so that's important to know. And again, from day one, so you hire a casual employee today, they are entitled to the 10 days even though they're a casual from day one. And we'll talk about what considers normal pay, but yeah, the three versions, full-time, part-time and casual, will all be entitled to it.